Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Hope y'all are having a good week so far. So today we are gonna take some notes. There will not be. Wait one second. We're gonna take some notes today, and these notes will play into what you are going to be doing tomorrow. So be sure that you have opened up the notes page that was at the beginning of this module, so that way you have them to take notes over. Um, those will help you do what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So be sure that you have that up and are taking notes as you watch. Um, Friendly reminder too that grades or any assignments you need to turn in are due this Friday. So if you have any missing assignments or any other assignments you want to redo, those are due by Friday. I've had a couple people ask if they can redo old assignments that they didn't do so well on. Absolutely, you can redo old assignments, and I will take the highest of the grades, the highest of the two grades that you do. So just let me know that you're redoing them. That way I know to look for them. And then same thing with Ed puzzles. If you see an Ed puzzle that you did but I haven't graded, shoot me an email and tell me. I may have just not looked for it yet. So without further ado, we are going to do our last dynasty before break, and that is the Ming Dynasty, and they were from 1368 to 1644. Here's the three terms that you will need to know. Expedition, which is just a journey or voyage undertaken by a group of people with a purpose. Usually it's an exploration, science, research, or war. Junk, and not like trash. It's actually a unique Chinese ship that was developed by the Ming and later copied by Europeans. We'll look at that here later. I'll have a picture to show you. And then the last one is isolationism. That is just removing yourself or a country from contact with the outside world. So almost like quarantine, but on a country scale, if that makes sense. I'll explain how that connects here in a minute. So origins of the Ming, around the year 1368, a man named Zhu Yuanzhuang, yeah, Taizu, it was called Taizu. He rebelled against the Yuan dynasty and started his own. And he decided to call it the Ming, of course. And this is Mr. Tao Zhu over here. In August of that year, he captured the Yuan capital of Beijing, made it his imperial capital. If you are familiar, Beijing is now the current capital of China. His story is a little unique in that he actually grew up in poverty and managed to work his way through that civil service system we've been talking about. So the whole constant um, civil service exams we've been dealing with, like taking the exams to work your way through the government. Those actually helped Tao Zhu here expand to a point where he was able to become emperor, essentially. One thing about this man that he's not a good thing. I mean, he was known for his paranoia, which often resulted in him removing government officials, and by removing I mean killing. One example resulted in the killing of over 30,000 government workers and or religious education scholars. So the man was very paranoid about his life, but did not stop him from becoming emperor of China. Life under the Ming, very similar to previous dynasties we've talked about. They continued those civil service exams. They promoted international trade along the Silk Road and forms of economic activity. One thing that we haven't really talked about is they actually improved the literacy rate among the general public. Basically, what that means is they improved the number of people who could read and write among the general population. That number actually increased quite a bit under the Ming Dynasty. They continued the production of silk and porcelain, created some government reforms. They developed new naval technologies as well. The early Ming Dynasty is well known for its naval expeditions, its naval travel. And partly that was because they invented the junk. It incorporated new technologies. You can research what those are if you really want to know. To be honest, I tried to figure it out, and it's beyond what I understand. So yeah, they invented some new naval stuff, and that technology allowed those ships to travel further than before, and maintain the direction they were going better than other ships had before. And actually, later European ships would be modeled after these Chinese ships here. So this happens under the Ming Dynasty. As far as trade goes, they continued the previous dynasty's active trade with places outside China. The land part of the Silk Road that we've been talking about constantly was still there, but it was long. It was unsafe a lot of the time, and so really, the sea portion of the Silk Road is when really took off during this period. This is when Europeans discovered they could go around Africa. They made their way to India, China, Indonesia, and so on. So they kind of, I don't want to say abandoned the land one here, but they definitely increased the amount of time they were spending on the sea. And one of those guys was a man by the name of Zhang He. Zhang He was a Chinese admiral who used the new junk ships to travel further away than previous dynasties had ever gone. There's evidence that he made expeditions trips as far away as India, Saudi Arabia, and even the east coast of Africa here. One of his voyages contained over 62 ships and almost 30,000 sailors. So he was a very, very big in the Ming Dynasty as far as trade goes. And this map kind of shows you some of the places we have documented evidence of him traveling to at some point. So early Ming Dynasty, like the first half of it, to about the 1450s, they managed to actively engage themselves with the outside world. But around the mid 1400s, things changed. The land route of the Silk Road was disrupted when the Ottoman Empire, which we'll talk about later on, probably next year, captured the city of Constantinople in 1453. That kind of cut the land portion of the Silk Road off. It wasn't no longer a good option. And so that's why they kind of shifted the seat. But at the same time, in China, under Emperor Chengzu, he began to put into place a policy known as isolationism. And what this essentially means that he made it, I don't want to say illegal, but he stopped all outside trade with other countries. Foreign merchants were not allowed into China, and Chinese merchants were not allowed out of China. No more Silk Road, no more naval expeditions, and basically international trade pretty much stopped because of this. So he kind of basically shut the doors to the outside world and locked China in. One thing that came out of this, though, is actually one of the bigger cultural achievements in Chinese history, and that is the Forbidden City. And it's this area right here. It was built around 1420, and for a long time, up until I think the 1920s, it actually served as the formal residence of the Chinese emperors. The royal family lived here, so did high-ranking government officials from across the empire. It was a walled compound, and it's called the Forbidden City because essentially, unless you worked for the emperor or worked for his immediate staff, you were not allowed inside inside the walls, basically. So common people like you and me would not be allowed inside unless you had an official audience or a meeting with the emperor, and that was extremely hard to get. Today, this is actually a World Heritage Site and a national museum in China, but this is actually, or for a long time, it was called the Forbidden City because outside common people like us would not have been allowed in. So that is actually where we are going to stop for today. If you all have any questions, shoot me an email. I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully.